What's one place you can go to and find the weirdest, freakiest creatures in our society? I swear, I've never been to a single Walmart where I didn't see at least one eye-catchingly strange human being. Strange does not even cut it for what I'm about to tell you. It was the Thursday before Black Friday. My Walmart was open extra late. I was in there around 11 o'clock, looking for a new laptop, and by chance, I picked up off the shelf the last one that was being promoted for a really good Black Friday deal. As I grabbed it, though, some big, revolting, dirty-looking guy comes up to me and insists he needs a laptop very badly. I nervously said, "I'm sorry, it's the last one." Then he got angry at me and started making a bit of a scene. The man clearly wasn't normal, and my heart started racing simply because I don't get put on guard in these kinds of situations a lot. As others looked on at the commotion this big guy was making, I walked away with the laptop box quickly and went straight to a line. He kept yelling at me as I walked away. It was unbelievable. Some other customers on the line even tried to laugh with me and make me feel better, saying the guy was a nut. So, I get home, my family is all asleep already. I go outside to sit in the yard by the pool and set up my new laptop. Then, the light on the side of the house turned on, the one that turns on due to movement. I went to check the side of the house to make sure no one was there. Would that thing go off once in a while? Yeah, but there's a small patch of woods right next to the house, so animals would often run on the property, triggering it. Either way, I'm kind of a big deal, so I went inside, locked the door, and finished setting up my laptop in the living room. A car alarm suddenly started going off outside. I recognized it to be my Cadillac. I looked out the window to confirm this. I ran to get my keys upstairs, then tried pressing the panic button to turn off the alarm. It didn't work from the inside, so I stepped out to the porch and clicked it off. But then I noticed a car parked in front of our house that wasn't there earlier when I got home. Any cars parked in the street on our block was suspicious enough. We live in a closed-off community, and everyone has huge driveways. I stepped down from the stoop and realized there was someone sitting in that car. I went back inside and locked the door. I went to my mom's room and told her, "I think someone outside means us harm." My mom and dad have a complicated situation, so my dad doesn't always stay with us. It would have been a different story having my dad there to tell about this. My mom came downstairs with me, noticeably worried, based on what I told her. My mom took a look through the peephole in the front door, then gasped and put her hands over her mouth. I looked through it as well and felt ready to throw up when I saw a huge man standing on the other side of the door, on our stoop. I whispered to my mom, "I think that man followed me from Walmart." Suddenly, the doorknob started to turn as the man tried opening the door. When it didn't work, he started pounding on the door. That's when my mom let out a gasp and cry, and my younger sister came out from her room, who also started to panic when becoming wise to the situation. The pounding stopped, then there was a silence for a while, other than my mom's voice on the phone with the police. A few minutes went by, my mom still on the line with 911, with police en route, and there was a loud bang and crash downstairs in the den. A window was shattered. My mom and sister both screamed and cried. I told them to run upstairs while I locked the door to the den. I waited down there, expecting an attempt at the door or a bang, but nothing. Surprisingly, I heard a police car briefly wail its siren outside my house. It was the quickest response time I'd ever heard of. I ran outside to lead them to the den where the broken glass was. There, they found the huge, dirty, crazy-looking man hiding behind one of our couches. He was arrested at once, and we pressed charges. All the while, He was screaming profanities and threats at me, not helping his case. Both cops told me the guy seemed unstable and on some kind of drugs, but told us to get a good night's rest because he wouldn't be bothering us again. So, while it may be fun to people watch at Walmart and laugh at some of the goofy things you see, realize you may also find some of the more dangerous people in our society in your local Walmart. I'm a single dad balancing 2 jobs and 2 kids. Things got a little easier when my eldest son got old enough to watch after my youngest, but working all day makes everything a pain. Anyway, I got home from my second shift around 10, but tomorrow I had another full day of work and I knew I didn't have anything for them to eat while I was gone, so I had to make a quick trip to Walmart. They were the only store around that was open until 11. I got there just before 10:30. I hated to be that customer that walked in right before closing, but I didn't have much of a choice. I went straight over to the grocery section and looked around for some frozen meals for the kids, but after a minute I realized there was someone watching me. It was this creepy-looking man standing on the other side of the aisle. Every time I'd look at him, he would look away, playing dumb, but it was super obvious he was staring at me. I grabbed a couple boxes and went down to the next aisle, but the man followed. I looked back at him and watched as he pretended to look around, occasionally checking if I was still looking at him. He seemed to be in his late 40s, but it was hard to tell because he was wearing a heavy jacket and a hat. "You good?" I said, hoping he'd get the hint to leave me alone. He immediately walked away, not even looking at me again. I thought to myself, he was just some random strange Walmart customer, like you always hear about, and tried to not think about it any more than that. I picked up a box of cereal and some milk, then headed to the self-checkout lane. I kept my eyes open for that man, but he wasn't around anymore. I guessed I really did scare him off. I scanned everything and paid, then walked out. It was dark and the parking lot wasn't very well lit, but from far away I could tell something was off about my car. Walking up to it, there were scratches and dents all over it, and 2 of the windows were shattered. I was in shock. Then I heard footsteps coming up quickly behind me. I turned, seeing 2 men rushing at me, one holding some sort of metal pipe in his hand. I tried getting my keys out and getting in my car, but I realized I was taking too long and took off running instead. I ran straight back to the store and I heard their footsteps stop after a short chase. I watched by the front entrance as they beat in my car some more, then got in a nearby truck and drove away. I of course called 911 and they helped me with my car and giving me a ride home, but nothing could be done about it. At first, a month later, though, the same thing happened to someone else at a different Walmart a few miles away. The man who got attacked was armed and managed to detain one of them, and this eventually led to both men being arrested. One of them I recognized as the man I'd seen looking at me in the store, but I don't know about the other one. Neither gave any reasons worth noting as to why they did it. There's just some sick people out there, but I'm glad these 2 won't be around anymore. My worst job ever was working at Walmart. I worked there only for a few months. I hated every minute of it, honestly. I didn't get along with a lot of my coworkers. The customers were crazy and weird, and I felt like a lot of people just generally were unfriendly. I was 24, and Walmart was my second job to make ends meet with my new apartment. Sometimes I'd work the register, sometimes I'd work the desk outside the fitting room, and sometimes I'd work as a general sales associate. On this day, I was a general associate, walking around the place, assisting customers, and straightening things on the shelves. I interacted with a bunch of people that day, and I still remember dealing with some of the dumbest customers I'd ever had the displeasure of interacting with. But nothing could have prepared me for who I was going to run into that day. I got a random pat on the back, and I turned around to see my ex-girlfriend Casey. She looked super happy to see me and went in for a hug. I was surprised because she didn't live anywhere near here. I asked what brought her here, and she said she heard through a mutual friend that I started working here recently. Casey and I did not leave on good terms at all. She had been harassing me for a while since I had broken up with her, and I had to end up blocking her on everything to get her to stop. She was insanely controlling throughout our relationship, and downright obsessive, bipolar, and paranoid. After I ended things with her, she wouldn't stop trying to contact me and meet up with me to talk things out, even though we had talked things out multiple times. She even left multiple voicemails crying. I take no joy in any of that. I don't say any of this to belittle her or make a joke of mental illness. She has issues, and I came to learn that. I had to tell her multiple times that her behavior was not normal. Her finding out I got this job and coming to my place of work, I was not okay with. Even though I hugged her back and was cordial at first in this interaction, I eventually cut the crap and said, "Why are you here?" The fake friendliness stopped here on both sides. Her face got more serious, and she started telling me that it's really messed up that I block her out of my life like this. I told her this is the exact kind of behavior that made me block her. Showing up to my job is not normal. Then I started asking her which mutual friend told her that I worked here. She claimed that's irrelevant, and I assured her it most certainly is not irrelevant because I didn't believe that anyone told her where I work. I had broken up with Casey many months ago. She should have had no way of knowing about my new job or apartment, and I was confident none of my friends were even in contact with her anymore. I told her, "I'm seeing someone else now. I have to get back to work. Please leave and don't contact me again." She refused to leave, so I simply just started walking away to an employee's own area. She didn't follow me back there. It was at this moment I actually started considering trying to get a restraining order. After my shift was over, it had to be like 11 p.m. closing time. I left the store and went straight home. My roommate was home, his car was in the driveway. I parked next to him and went inside. I went straight to the kitchen to make myself a late dinner, as I always would after closing shifts. I microwaved some frozen meal and went to the living room to play video games for a while. This was my only time to unwind and do what I wanted. I played for maybe an hour, then went to bed. I woke up not long after falling asleep. I thought I heard something. I looked up and realized my bedroom door was open. I definitely did not do that. My roommate Paul goes to bed really early because he works early, and there's no chance he'd just get up and randomly open my door. I got up and walked out into the living room. I turned on a lamp and looked around the place. I went over to the front door, and it was unlocked. What the hell was going on? I was thinking, did Paul leave? I looked out the window and saw that his car was still there. I locked the front door, then I went to his bedroom door and tried opening it. It was locked. I knocked on the door lightly once, and he didn't respond, so he was asleep. I was genuinely confused. I went out front and looked under the pot where we kept the hidden spare key. It wasn't there. My heart was in my throat at this point. The only person in this world, besides Paul and my family, who knows that I like to hide a spare key outside is Casey. I checked at least 5 times under the pot, even checking the surrounding area on the chance that maybe it was kicked out of place or something. I went back inside the house and shut the front door. I went to the knife holder in the kitchen, and the biggest knife was missing. My phone was still in my bedroom. I had to be smart about this. I tiptoed to my bedroom door till I was close enough to grab the doorknob as fast as I could and slam it shut from the outside. I screamed as loud as I could for Paul. He erupted from his room, obviously confused, and there were suddenly bangs on the bedroom door from the other side, along with Casey's voice saying, "I'm sorry, let's talk." I held the door closed with all my might as she kept trying to pull it open. Paul called the police as I held the door. After a few minutes of this, Casey stopped trying to pull the door open, and she was hysterically crying on the other side of the door. Finally, the police arrived and came inside. I moved away from the door, and the officers made sure Casey dropped the knife before she came out. She was, of course, arrested, and I didn't even have to press charges. She was charged by the state for, I believe, burglary in the second degree, and she's currently serving a pretty lengthy prison term for this. I'm honestly shocked she didn't get charged for attempted murder. It's a sick situation all around. I don't know when she'll be out. I'll have been long moved out of this place by then. My biggest regret is not catching the red flags with her early. Walmart was never my first choice as a place to work, given the low-quality rep it has. But I applied for the job 2 years ago and took it for one reason: overnight, I wouldn't have to worry about crazy customers or anything. I just had to stock the shelves during the store's closed hours. This happened just a week or two after I started working there. I got some training from the manager for the first couple days, then I started working alone, like everyone else. The store was huge, so we had a lot of ground to cover every night. But the work itself was simple. We'd each have a long cart full of boxes to stock for each aisle, and we'd get as much done as we could before our shift was over. On Monday nights, I got to the store and clocked in at 11 p.m. I talked to the manager, then got my assigned aisles for the night and got to work. I was a pretty shy person, not great at making friends unless they talked to me first, so I always kept conversations to a minimum and focused on work, especially since I was new. As I was searching for the correct spot for one of the boxes in the aisle, a man came up behind me and tapped me on the shoulder. It startled me, but he politely asked where the bathroom was. I told him, and he walked away. I thought he was just another new employee, since they'd been hiring a lot recently. I mean, the store was closed, anyway. So, what else was I supposed to think? I carried on, finishing in the aisle and moving to the next, until the man came back. He stood at the end of the aisle I was in and did an awkward wave. He looked to be nervous or uneasy about something. I asked if he needed something. "Yeah, can you help me?" He stuttered. Sure," I said, following him. I had no idea what he needed, but thinking he was a new employee, I thought he must have made some sort of mistake and didn't want to tell the manager in fear of getting in trouble. We passed an aisle with another worker in it, and he gave me a funny look, just as I was starting to question things. The man stopped. We were at the front of the store, by the front service desk. "It's right here, if you could just reach it for me," he said, stepping aside and pointing at the other side of the counter. I walked in front of him and leaned over the counter, looking for what he was pointing at, but then I felt a sudden, dull object being pressed into my back. The man grabbed me aggressively and held me down, telling me to be quiet. I realized the object was likely the barrel of a gun, and my whole body went numb with fear. "Open it," he said in a hushed voice, referring to the cash register at the front desk. I told him I was just an overnight stalker and didn't have access to that stuff, but he didn't believe me. He got more aggressive each time he asked me. Before another employee walked by, the man yelled at him to open the register, but the employee looked just as scared as me. I told him I could call the manager to come up and open it for him, begging him not to do anything else. He agreed, and I picked up the store phone to call. But the other employee made a sudden run for it, which must have caught the man off guard. He shoved me against the counter, knocking the wind out of me, then ran across the store. I stayed there and managed to call 911. Luckily, everyone was okay, and the man actually didn't chase the other employee but just left the store instead. Everything was caught on store cameras, too, showing him hide just before closing, and even got a pretty good face shot. He was later identified and arrested, where they found that he was actually using a fake gun that he'd spray painted all black. I still work at Walmart today, and I've gotten a lot closer with some of my coworkers, but I still find myself staying alert, sometimes nervous that someone else could be lurking around in the huge store without me knowing. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to watch the latest videos.